I didn't get that from books. There was no 6 laws of the mind. That came through my subconscious revealing how consciousness works. In our 5 senses, we see everything as separate and independent from each other. We also live in the quantum dimension where everything is consciousness and energy and everything is connected. You are not your mind. Your mind is a part of you, a very important part of you, but it's not you.
Hello, John.
Hi, it's great to see you again, Gennady.
It's great to see you and in excellent health and always smiling, radiating energy and positivity. So that's what I really, I'm making this thing like when I see someone and people I know, what the first word which comes into my mind when I think about it. In your case, it's positive. You're always positive. I've never seen you like really grumpy. You were always like, I remember your phrase, it's always happens to me. I never forget that. When you said, it's always happened to me, meaning positive things. You expect positive, etc.
Yeah, well, I mean, life is an adventure. Actually, a new quote of mine right now
Mm-hmm.
is life is an adventure of choices.
Excellent.
And actually, if you look at your life, you will find indeed that is what life is. It's an adventure of choices. Now, there's choices such as what career do I go into, and who am I going to marry, and how do I invest my money, and what's important to me in life. What does a successful life look like? I mean, these are all choices we make as well, but there's a real fundamental choice, and that is, do I choose to be happy?
Mm-hmm.
And what I've found is that happiness is a choice, because it doesn't matter who you are or what your circumstances are, there are always reasons to be happy, and there's always reasons to be unhappy. I
Exactly.
mean, if you want to be unhappy, it's real easy because there's all kinds of reasons why to be unhappy. But at the same time, there's always reasons to be happy. There's always reasons to be positive. So I have made that a choice very early in my life, that I'm going to have a fun and interesting life, and I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to be successful. And so I actively chose thoughts and beliefs that promote that. And what happens is it becomes a habit. And then as it becomes a habit, you're repeating it over and over again. And then, of course, all my work with the subconscious is that it becomes a subconscious program. It's like an algorithm operating inside you. And so yeah, well, that's nice feedback to hear from you, that I'm always positive, because it's not put on, or it's not something I have to force or think about. It's become just
It's a
natural.
habit. It's a habit because of repetition, I think. We'll come back to that. No, first of all, I'd like to, I mean, a lot of viewers already know who you are. And you are a really incredible person. I think you're one of the first pioneers in this area of mind power. I mean, everybody knows that you went into cabin which you made yourself in the British Columbia woods, and you lived there. You meditate. You were thinking, and then you came out with this concept of mind power, based, of course, on the shoulders of giants. Like you were reading some really major thinkers, and then you came up with your own sort of practical guidance, I would say. How you can use your mind power to change your subconscious, to change your beliefs. Now it's called limiting beliefs, Before it was sort of your own perception about yourself, about your life. And you start teaching more than 40 years ago, which is like incredible. So a lot of my viewers probably, much younger than that. And funny thing is, another thing I'd like to mention before I shut up, really, because it's my professional information, I talk too much, that your major concepts didn't really change that much. I mean, your mind power into 21st century, your another book, bestseller, basically is, of course, it fine-tuned a lot of things, but at the same time, fundamentally, it's the same. I mean, you didn't betray your discovery, 40 years ago. You were just kind of going that way and enhancing it. So what is mind power? What is mind power in the kind of the most simple way possible? So my viewers would understand, the basic.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're correct in that we're all standing on the shoulders of those that have preceded us. And in my early years, I'm in my 70s now, but I first became interested in this when I was in my mid-20s, and I read and researched all that was available at that time, and there was not a whole lot available at that time. And I got to a point where I became very knowledgeable intellectual. I mean, I had all the concepts, but I wasn't able to actualize it in my life, and that was very frustrating to me. So I actually set myself a deadline and a goal, and I said, either this works or it doesn't. And if it works, I have to see it work in my life. I don't want to read books. I don't want to hear people talk about it. I have to see very real results in my life. And so I started experimenting, because what I found is that a lot of the techniques that I was learning, I mean the basics, affirmations, visualization, positive beliefs. I mean, they were simplistic, but there was a lot missing. And actually, it wasn't until I started working with my subconscious, and of course, in my books, I teach about that, and my training, I teach about that. But it wasn't until I personally began working daily with my subconscious that new information came. For example, the 6 laws of the mind, which is the foundation of my teaching. That did not come from any books. I didn't get that from books. There was no 6 laws of the mind. That came through my subconscious revealing how consciousness works. And so it was over 3 years, actually, where I put together the teaching, and the teaching is very basic and yet very deep and profound. And the basics of it is that thoughts are real forces, that every thought that you think is a force and an energy and is having an effect in your life, and that we are living in an energy web where everything is connected. Now, this is not some new age concept. This is what quantum physics teaches us. This is what science teaches us, is that we are immersed in an energy web where everything is connected. Now, this is existing beyond our 5 senses. In our 5 senses, we see everything as separate and independent from each other. I'm different from a tree. You and I are different people. The chair is different from the house. And that's the way it is in the dimension of time and space. But we live in another dimension. We also live in the quantum dimension, where everything is consciousness and energy, and everything is connected. So when you know that, when you experience it first as a concept, and it has to come as a concept. I used to get really upset at my students saying, you're only getting it conceptually. And then I kind of backed off and realized, but yeah, but that's the first. You have to get it as a concept. But if you only have it as a concept, you won't be able to work with it. You have to move beyond the concept into an actual experience of you interacting with the energy web, interacting with the quantum field, and seeing how you can influence it and have positive things happen to you. So that's the theory and the concept of it. And then the practices of it are, well, the basics: affirmations, visualizations, positive beliefs. But the basics, if you think of them only as positive thinking, uh, you wonder, well, how can it work? Why will it work? But when you understand that actually, no, what I'm doing when I do these type of techniques is that I am interacting with the energy web. When you really do that, and I encourage my students, I tell them that the biggest change of your life, the number one thing that can ever happen to you in your life, is when you prove to yourself absolutely 100% that I am a creative force in my life and I can make things happen through my thoughts and beliefs. Now, not that you ignore your actions. Your actions are important too. I don't in any way want to give the illusion that it's only your thoughts and beliefs. Yes, you have to act in a day-to-day manner to make things happen to you. But when you realize for the very first time that the most powerful force in your life is your thoughts and beliefs, you will never, ever be the same.
Right. Because basically what you're saying is that with the power of conscious mind, we can tap into subconscious. So we can change us fundamentally. For example, yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, it's even in the Bible, I think, if you believe, then it will happen. And if you have just knowledge, and if you have doubts, this warmth of doubts, then it doesn't work. So it must be really like you have to be brainwashed in a way, like in this, belief that yes, you are creating your reality with your thoughts and thinking. And this is the kind of, it seems to be like, well, yeah, it's easy, but it's not. We know that it's, our head is full of junk in a way. I'm sorry, my head.
Yeah, well, everybody's mind is filled with clutter. I mean, I talk about the conscious mind. I call it the great trickster. That it is a lot of useless thought, and it has negatives, and it has worries, and it has fears, and our mind is a storyteller, and that is another quite profound thing to realize, is that your mind is a storyteller. It will have a story about every single thing that happens to you. It has a story about your finances. It has a story about your marriage. It has stories about your parents. It has stories about your enemies. It has stories about everything. And so the mind makes up stories and tells them to us. Now,
Not necessarily
what
true, right? So all these stories are just, today is one story, in a week I could have another story probably.
exactly. The stories can change dramatically depending on the change of the circumstance. So, one of the realizations that I had, that if the mind is a storyteller, if that's its natural inclination, the way that it likes to work is it likes to make up stories, then why don't we control the narrative? Why don't we give the mind stories?
Mm.
And because here's another amazing realization: that will quite transform you when you truly understand it and get it. And that is that you are not your mind. Your mind is a part of you, a very important part of you, but it's not you. You are much more than your mind, just like you're not your foot or you're not your hand. You are not your mind, and we have to learn to train the mind. And so if you can control the narrative, you can control the story that the mind is telling you, and you can. How? By teaching the mind the stories that you want it to tell you. And by repeating these stories over and over again and through repetition, the mind will work with you. The mind wants to work with you. It's just we've never been taught how to train the mind and work with the mind. And that's why I'm so proud of my work is that I actually have not just the concepts, I actually have the techniques and the system on teaching people how to harness the powers of the mind. And it's been an incredible career. I'm coming up to a half a century. I'm counting it in centuries now, because I'm another 5-6 years. It'll be 50 years that I've been teaching.
Fantastic, fantastic. And God bless you, keep on doing that. I mean, I really, and judging by your health, by your smile, by your attitude. So really, of course, nobody knows, but how many millions of people wish you to carry on doing what you're doing for the benefits of all of us. It's
well, I'm continuing doing it for a few reasons. Number one, I'm enjoying it. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. I'm still being creative and productive, and new insights, deeper teaching, new ways of working with the mind and the conscious mind are happening all the time, and that's very reassuring to me, because it means that your personal growth never stops. And I once had someone ask me, John, do you mean that I'm going to keep learning my entire life? And the person was kind of in despair that you never arrive. And I said, well, I hope you keep learning the rest of your life. Actually, personally in my life, I find my 70s that I'm my most creative and my most productive. And so many new things are coming to me that how can I not be out there sharing it with other people? I've got a large following all over the world, so my students want to hear more from me, and those that aren't aware of my work, then this is a great opportunity to reach out to people and say, hey, there's something here, I want you to check it out. So I can't see retirement anytime soon. Not as long as I keep having as much fun as I am.
Right. In fact, I just read somewhere that retirement itself was invented during the Industrial Revolution, when people were doing physical work, and when they were tired, there were new people at the gate, younger people. So they were shifting people, older people, into the retirement. But now, I mean, what retirement can be for thinking? And in fact, if I ask you a question, have you realized your full potential? You would say, haha, I know the answer. Not yet.
Yeah,
Everything is in front. So that's absolutely true, which is wonderful, I think, human quality to keep on going and really processes everything. Goal is nothing. Can you share with us some technique, John? I know that, for example, there are quite a lot of, it's a difficult period in human life. And I think never before we had such a big crisis, which affected, according to some estimations, 6 million, 5 million people who were staying indoors with their thoughts, and sometimes, trapped really in the apartments and etc. Some people are saying that it's called a somatic marker, that we are marked with the fear for life. So with the negativity towards even other people, before we were liking people, some people we liked more, but now we perceive, according to some theory, other individuals as a source of infection. So even going out could be, for a lot of people, an act of overcoming some fears. So how you would do with negative thoughts and fear, if I may ask you? Please share some maybe simple technique which can be implemented straight after our interview.
Yeah, the eliminating negatives is a really important part of having a positive mental attitude. And not only a positive mental attitude, but to shift the energy and vibration of who you are, because our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs are not just meaningless nothings that happen in our mind. These are real energetic forces, and they produce what science calls our energy signature, that each of us has our own particular energy signature, our own vibration, which is attracting circumstances and situations to us. So one of the most fundamental and easiest and actually really proactive things that we can do in our life is to start to get rid of all the negative thinking that we have. And so let me give you a couple of very, very simple techniques for eliminating negatives. First thing is to recognize that negatives get their power from you. And it's the same with fear. Fear gets its energy from you. What fuels fear? You thinking about it, you reacting to it, you adding more and more to it. Like the fear comes that, oh, I'm going to lose my job, or oh, I'm going to run out of money, or oh, I'm going to fall sick. And all these things are possible because everything exists as a possibility. But if you think about it all the time, if you worry about it, if you focus on it, if it becomes your predominant thought patterns, then what you're doing is you're adding fuel to it. Because never forget that negatives get their power from you. And so if you stop for a moment and realize, okay, by me continually thinking this, then what I'm doing is I'm actually promoting it. I'm inviting it. I'm building it. And I'm creating possibilities of this happening in a way that I don't want to happen. So one of the techniques of eliminating negatives is to simply remind yourself every time that you find yourself in fear or thinking a negative, remind yourself that it's only a negative thought. That's what you do. Now, very, very simple. You're thinking negative, you're thinking fear. Remind yourself, stop what you're doing and remind yourself that it's only a negative thought, no more or no less. Mm-hmm. And then replace it with the exact opposite. So if the fear is that I'm going to fall sick, then first of all, say, no, that's only a negative thought. Then replace it with the exact opposite. I'm going to be healthy. My immune system is great. And you think about that. If the negative thought is, I'm going to lose my job, then replace it with the exact opposite. No, I'm going to be fine in my job. Or if I do lose my job, I'm going to end up with something even better. So that you don't let that negative take over. Now, with fear, fear becomes entrenched. And so the least little trigger can elicit that fear.
Mhm.
So what you have to do is, in controlling the mind, is that you announce to the mind very clearly that from this point on, we do not want that fear in our mind. Now, one of the mythic titles that I've given to the conscious mind, and I've created mythic titles for the subconscious and the conscious mind, because what it does is it allows you to understand their functions better. One of the mythic titles that I've given to the conscious mind is Guardian to the Gates of the Subconscious. So that the conscious mind, its function is to make sure that the thoughts that you think are of the highest quality, so that through repetition, no fear or no negative concept can enter into the subconscious. So if the mind is going to become guardian to the gates of the subconscious, and I recommend that you teach the mind that by repeating it to the mind all the time, many, many times a day. Repeat to your mind, uh, mind, do you realize that you're guardian to the gates of the subconscious? And it might seem funny that you're talking to your mind, but why not? Your mind talks to you all the time. So if it talks to you, obviously you can talk to it. So teach it that it's guardian to the gates of the subconscious, and have it be on guard for fears. And so the next time that the fear comes that I'm going to be out of money, I'm going to have no money, for example, let's say that was your fear. What you would do is every time that that fear comes, you hit it with 2 minutes of affirmations on the exact opposite. So the exact opposite would be, I'm going to be fine financially. I'm going to be successful financially. I'm going to be successful financially. I'm going to be successful financially. And actually do it, for 2 minutes. Have your phone there, set the alarm, do it for 2 minutes, and then carry on. And so what will happen is the fear will go away, but it'll come back. It'll come back maybe 20 minutes later or 2 hours later, and you'll find yourself with that fear. But what you're doing is you notice it, because you have instructed the mind that it is guardian to the gates of the subconscious. And so when it comes back, again, hit it with 2 minutes of affirmations that you're going to be fine financially, or you're going to be fine health-wise, or what, counteracting whatever the fear is. And also bring in some visualizations and visualizing yourself being healthy or being financially stable, and or whatever the counter to the fear is. And sometimes people say, yeah, but how can I do that when I don't believe that, John? I mean, I honestly don't believe that I will be fine. And you can't believe something that you don't believe, but you're wrong there. You can believe whatever you choose. And so through the mind power techniques is that you create beliefs, you create images, you create statements, you take control of the narrative that is going on in your mind. And if you take control of the narrative that's going on in your mind, fear and negatives do not have a chance.
Wonderful. I think it's like with everything. During the coronavirus, I did a lot of gardening. And it's like you have to put a seed first. You have to water it. You have to wait. You have to do it consistently. You cannot just have it and then forget it and then it will grow. No, you have to put some labor. And the same with the muscle building, this trivial comparison. So if you want to become, muscle person, then you have to do exercise a little bit every day, but every day, etc. And with the power of mind, we sometimes think that, well, it's simple. just I understand it, that's it. And it's not. It requires as much effort, I think, as much kind of perseverance, and the to have really this willpower to do it, to control it, and then there'll be results. So nothing can happen like that, because people say, "Oh, it doesn't work." How many
Yeah.
how many times did you try? How?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people think that mind power is positive thinking, and I really go out of my way
Mhm.
to explain to them no, this is not positive thinking. Now, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against positive thinking. It's much better to be positive than negative, but this is not positive thinking. What this is an actual training that is teaching you the power of thought, the power of belief, and giving you laws, methods, techniques on how you can practice on a daily basis. And you do need to put in a daily practice. Now, in my training, for example, I suggest that you put a minimum of 20 minutes a day for the 6 weeks that the training is, so that you will see the results. After the training, you can put in as little as maybe 2 or 5 minutes because you're into the habit. But in the beginning stages, you have to make an effort. It does not happen by you wanting it to happen, wishing it to happen, uh, being positive. That does not make it happen. You have to actually work with the techniques and practice the techniques. And the nice thing about when you work with the techniques and practice the techniques is that you actually see results fairly quickly. Most people can see noticeable results within the first week or two. And when I say noticeable results, no, I'm not saying that suddenly you're a millionaire or suddenly everything in your life is perfect. No, what I am saying is that you notice a difference in how you feel. You notice a difference in your expectations. You notice a difference on how you're navigating your day-to-day circumstances. And you do notice that things are getting better, improving. You are seeing changes. And so that is very exciting for students when they recognize that they can do that. But it's very important to recognize that it is very much a practice and a training. And sometimes I like to refer to it as becoming an athlete of the mind.
Mhm.
And I really like that expression, an athlete of the mind, because we know that if you're going to be a professional athlete, I mean, it takes work, and those people train. And even if you're an amateur athlete, I mean, you have to train in
Yeah.
order to be proficient at it. So if you can think of being an athlete of the mind, then that gives you a good reference and frame as, oh, okay, well, if I'm an athlete of the mind, then I guess I have to train. Exactly.
Yes, and then benefits will be tremendous. Benefits will be, reaped during, the rest of somebody's life. And yes, fantastic. John, what about meditation? May I ask you this? Because meditation, interesting. I read an article somewhere that in America there are so many people who claim to have regular meditation sessions, but actually only a small number of people who do meditate regularly. So, how do you think meditation can help to have these positive affirmations, and work? How does it help to work better maybe with the subconscious mind? What's your experience?
Meditation is very valuable, and there's many types of meditation. And why meditation is valuable is because it's helping you to control and direct your thoughts. And a lot of meditation is to slow down your thoughts and even stop your thoughts so that you can feel peaceful, you can feel relaxed, you can feel in harmony, and all these techniques are valuable. The way I meditate is totally different, though. I have an active meditation. And so, and in fact, often I will describe mind power as active meditation. So rather than trying to slow down the thoughts or calm the thoughts or get beyond thoughts, with active meditation, you harness the mind to think the thoughts that you choose, because the mind's natural inclination is to think thoughts. The mind's natural inclination is to create a narrative and story about everything that's happening to you. So you can use active meditation by focusing your thoughts and on what you choose them. If you can direct and control your thoughts, that is active meditation. And that is the type of meditation that I personally use. But all meditation is valuable.
So basically, it's power of focus. So you don't allow your brain to start thinking, sideways. So you program it in a way. So today I don't know how you do it, but what I think it is that you have your own line of how can I say thinking, and you reinforce it no matter what, and that's sort of meditation, because it's you're focusing and you're training your brain to focus and ignore all this squeaky fear, which comes and with the brain as a thought-making machine, which is ongoing.
Yeah, and you don't have to do it constantly. You don't have to. This is another misconception of mind power, is that you have to be diligent and positive and every moment of every day, and you can never allow a negative thought to come into your mind. That's too rigid, and I like to share with people that all you really have to do is put in 20 minutes a day. Because if you put in 20 minutes a day, every day, what happens is that the mind is a creature of habit. And you naturally reach the subconscious through repetition. So just having that discipline, and that's again coming back to being an athlete of the mind, when you accept the fact that, okay, if I'm going to be an athlete of the mind, that is another level of commitment. And that I can't be an athlete of the mind just by hoping or wishing that I am an athlete of the mind. I'm actually going to have to train. And but you don't have to spend hours training. I find 15, 20 minutes, if you can give 15 or 20 minutes every day to directing your mind, controlling your mind, practicing the techniques that I teach, if you can commit that amount of time every day, the mind will naturally start working for you, and you will see noticeable results in your life.
Right, right. Yeah, that makes it like a huge task. You're splitting it into smaller pieces, so they are much more easy to digest, to consume. And definitely at the end of the day, at the end of the year, or several months or weeks, I think the results will follow. Yeah, then that's thank you so much, John, for sharing. It's always a pleasure. And every time I talk to you, I feel that, damn, I don't do enough.
Well, it's great to reach out to you, Gennady. You're a personal friend, and I have great admiration for you as a person and what you do to facilitate and help messages get out to other people, and that's absolutely great. So if people have had value from this interview, then you can come and train with me online. And in English, you can just Google John Kehoe, and you'll come to my website. And we have the Russian website as well. And so if you either in Russian or in English, you can train with me online, and that would be great.
Yeah, that's for my Russian audience, or some part of it. I can say that yes, just recently your website is out, and you actually translated your 6-week course online, which is, I think, wonderful for the Russian audience. Even this video, I hope I will translate as fast as I can into Russian for my Russian audience. But I think that what you've done, is great. Because you are limited in traveling now as everybody else, you made an effort and put it online. That's wonderful.
Well, I have such a large following in Russia, and my books have sold millions of copies. And you are correct. I've toured Russia many times in the past,
and Ukraine.
Yeah, and the Ukraine. Oh, well, when I say Russia, let me correct that. All the Russian-speaking languages: Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Belarus, and the Russian-speaking people from all those countries. I have just fallen in love with all of you. You're beautiful, beautiful people, and I really have enjoyed in the past. I do not know if I will be doing any touring in the future, but I can reach out now online, and this is absolutely great. And I just want to let all of you that are watching this right now, I want you to know that I love and respect you, and I'm here for you, and I'm happy that we get to interact this way.
Thank you very much, John. It's always a pleasure. I mean, I'm saying that, first of all, I made a principle for myself that I work only with the people I really like. And you are one of my Mercedes-Benzes, as they say. I love working with you. I love talking to you. I think you and Sylvia are incredible people. My daughter, who visited your house several times, is absolutely, fascinated by you and by your family. So thank you very much for being. Thank you for your kind words. And hopefully sometime later on we could repeat the experience and have another interview sometime, in the future.
Well, let's do that, Gennady.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John. Bye-bye.